All right, welcome to NFL Outdated. This is the Wide World of Sports series, and it's not necessarily a sport, but going through my Twitter handles, I saw this guy Rum'd Reviews, and it was just so exciting, so interesting, and so I had to connect with him, and so here I am, joined by John, the founder of Rum'd Reviews. Lots of stuff to talk about. Welcome. How's it going?
It's going really well, man. No, I want to first just say thanks for having me on. This is awesome. This was something that was an early goal of mine, is how can I join with other up and coming creators that are just doing things like this. And so no, I appreciate it. Appreciate being here. How are things with you?
Any day I get to talk about sports or do this type of thing, connect with other podcasters, it's a great day. So
I couldn't agree with you more.
So we were talking about offline and just how interesting Twitter handle is, and everybody loves a good rum, also different brands and whatnot. But let's just kind of go into it. Like, how did you start Rum'd Reviews?
Yeah, so when it started, it kind of came from excuse me, a scenario that could be seen as like a sad situation.
Mm-hmm.
I was living in a town in Iowa, Davenport, Iowa. Shout out to the Quad Cities.
Mm-hmm.
And I had moved for a job, and I didn't know anybody. So I pretty much went to work, did my job, came home, and yeah, I was loving work. But after that, it's, well, now what do I do? And so one night I came home, and I've always been a huge movie fan. Always had a massive movie collection. And I was like, I'm just gonna watch a really shitty movie. And then I'm gonna tweet about it because I've been drinking and I think I should, people want to hear my opinion. And that was where it started. And then a few weeks later I did it again, and I started hashtagging the chain as Rum'd Reviews. And then one day a friend of mine, an original co-founder, Dustin, so shout out to him. He called me and he was like, hey man, let's do a podcast. Like, I think we could make something with this. And so then we started playing around with the audio podcast, a little bit of video podcast that never fully developed. And then ultimately he decided to depart, had some other things come up in life. He got married, he had been married and moving houses, things like that. So he left the show. And from there, I kind of looked around and I went, well, you know what? I'm having a good time with this.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, it's something that the point is to be a very casual conversation. It's a fireside chat. And an opportunity to really do a few things that I think anyone would want to do, which is talk about things that I love, whether that's movies, or now we've expanded and really taken Rum'd Reviews from what started as just a movie review podcast where we drank rum, talked a little bit about the rum at the beginning, and then went into the movie, to we're really almost becoming more of a brand. Rum'd Reviews has become an umbrella as we're trying out a variety of different shows with different co-hosts on it, from the classic movie show to a sports show that we're just now getting off the ground. And then also a wrestling, the kind of WWE professional wrestling style podcast that I'm really excited about. And then planning to launch this year what we call the Rum'd Roundtable, which is going to be a conversation kind of similar to this, where it's like, hey, let's sit down and bring in some folks. A very good friend of mine is working out in Hollywood right now as a production assistant. So have him come in. He's done that for about 2 years. And like, let's hear that story. What's it like to live that life? And so that's kind of where it came from, and now what it's evolved into.
Yeah, I love that. And it's interesting that you kind of bring up, how you started. I actually started during the NFL draft, and just, basically doing tweets of, during the 2021 draft, just doing old tweets, like when JJ Watt was drafted, like it was actually happening then. And just to make myself laugh, and all these, the satire and stuff. And it was just kind of me alone kind of doing it. I'm like, it's funny to me. I don't care who sees it, and so they kind of more from there. And then then I'm just thinking, I really, love fantasy football, love movies, and just started connecting with people. And it's really kind of cool, how things kind of morph along the way and start adding, and just, it's fun kind of doing what you love, really.
That's exactly it. And I think, that was something that really early on, especially when Dustin left the show, became the focal point. And I think it had always been there, but it was, hey, Rum'd Up Reviews is for us. Like, we want to make a good show, but at the end of the day, like, what we're here to do is we want to have a good time together, and hopefully you find that entertaining, and you like the way that we have a good time, and you want to be a part of that. And if not, if it doesn't take off, the conversation I've had with everybody that's joined in is like, hey, I can't promise this is ever going to take off. If it does, we're going to be able to do some special things. But if it doesn't, the worst case scenario is we took a little bit of time out of our lives to sit down and have a good time together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, talking about, having a good time, so do you have a go-to brand of rum that you drink?
I do. So my rum kind of history and knowledge is still pretty fresh. I'm new to it. I started in the classic way that I think most people do, which was as a college student, good old Captain Morgan, get you through the day. Beyond that, though, I really love my default kind of a reasonably priced rum and has a good flavor is Appleton Estate Rum. It's a Islander rum. And if you can find the reserve blend, I like that one a little bit more. It's almost a little more sweet, brings out the caramel a little more. Typically what you're going to find, though, is the signature blend. Still very good. That's going to range you a very reasonable $30 to $40 for a nice size bottle.
That's not bad.
But I did actually bring something a friend of mine got me tonight. And somebody on the show, I believe it was you, was a Bears fan.
I am a Bears fan. That's awesome.
So I had to bring that cup.
Appreciate it.
I brought it because I won't lie. As you can see, I'm wearing a robe right now. But I had to wear a shirt, once I had watched your show, which I love it, by the way.
Yeah.
I went, well, this is the shirt I have to have. So shout out Charlie Barons as well.
Nice. Well, and it's funny that you shout out to Charlie Barons, my co-host on the podcast. Actually, we're going on after this. I had a challenge with her. It's Danny in the Snow, our Packers person. She that was a challenge to get Charlie Barons to follow her. And that just happened today. So
that is awesome.
Yeah, she messaged, she said, I win. I'm like, there you go. Well done.
That is special. That is amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, this was meant to happen.
It was. And it's funny. Like I am I'm a Bears fan, but I'm a realistic, fan, and living in Wisconsin, for me, I could not live in a place where everybody liked my team. I enjoy, people giving me a hard time and vice versa. Although I did get a chance to go to the Bears Vikings game, and I just cannot stand that horn. Oh my gosh. Oh.
That's where it's hilarious. I find a common consensus with most of the NFC North, which is we all I think we all really love that ability to mess with each other. And and so I completely agree. I love that competitiveness of it. But the universal consensus is, Minnesota, though. Minnesota is always the exception, that horn or the, all of that. So it's amazing how that works.
Well, you talk about other rums. So do you get into like a coconut rum then, or do you ever do, any?
Yeah, so I tend to do more dark and spiced rums. That's my go-to. My go-to drink is a dark and stormy, which sounds fancy. All it is a Moscow Mule, but subbing in a dark rum.
Yeah.
So
I'm a Mule fan. Yeah.
It's amazing. Get that fresh lime in there. I'm not the biggest fan of white rums. And a lot of times it is like, I'm just not a huge coconut fan.
Yeah.
And a lot of those do have coconut. Now, what I have tonight, actually, this one was pretty cool. This is it's Pitoro Blanco. So a friend of mine got married, and he and his wife honeymooned in the islands, and he sent this back to me from Puerto Rico. And it's a pretty amazing thing. If you can get it, you can order it online. But it's moonshine. It is called moonshine rum on the islands. And just like American moonshine, you can buy your store-bought. That's what this is. Still very good. But the creme de la creme, I've never had a chance to try it yet, is that good old fashioned, made in somebody's backyard,
Right, right.
uh, where they like bury the jars in the dirt with the fermented fruits to give it flavor, and they have dark chocolate and all these amazing things. So
Yeah, well, it just basically making my mouth water. I mean, when I'm thinking of these different, yeah, being in Wisconsin, I've kind of gotten into old fashions, but
yeah,
rum and coke, those, anything with rum now, I'm really starting to kind of gravitate toward it, and obviously it's an interesting thing. I've done the wine thing, and it's it's all right, but
yeah.
I'm trying to get a little more sophisticated. We'll just say that.
I get it. It's funny. That's really how I became a rum person. I realized pretty quickly, I'm not a huge bourbon drinker. I will drink it,
Mhm.
but I honestly don't love the kind of smokiness or the oakiness, the wood flavors. And so it was like, well, if I'm not gonna drink whiskey, I have to have something to drink.
Mhm.
That's kind of in that category. And when I found rum and just discovered it, everybody typically thinks of, oh, rum and coke, or
Mhm.
rum and tonic, something like that. And it's like, no, there is such a bigger world of rum out there to do some amazing things.
Yeah, and when you think of, like, rum as opposed to vodka, I mean, what would you say? Obviously, maybe the appeal over rum over vodka would be.
Yeah, a lot of times, even regardless of if you're talking about a dark spiced rum or a clear rum, it's the sweetness, it's the sugar
Hmm.
cane, oftentimes used in it, and that's the thing that I think makes rum um, a really good drink to add into other things, because it's essentially you're adding in a sugar, and then you can season it with those spices however you want. But that's the beautiful thing about it, is like vodka, you can really take a base level rum and then
Hmm.
turn it into anything. It's almost like with cooking, when you start with a roux and then go from there. You can do that with rum.
So now this is a question that's kind of got me thinking. Obviously, with rum, it's the sugar, right?
Yeah.
Is there kind of a for maybe some of the ladies out there, a low calorie kind of option, or less sugar type of thing that still is good?
Yeah, absolutely. With that, you're probably going to be looking at your clear rums.
Okay.
Just inherently, those dark spiced rums, they're packing in those little granular calories, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to want to look for something a little lighter, something in those clear bottles, and from there, it's really just kind of looking at uh, what the flavoring is. So if your odds are, unfortunately, like if you're going for that really great tasting strawberry rum, well, it tastes like strawberries because they put a crap ton of sugar.
Right.
Um, so it's one of those things that, yeah, hey, if you're looking for that route, and that's where something like a not an overly expensive top notch one, but something like a rum moonshine
Hmm.
can come in really well, because at that point it's essentially the rum base. It's going to be more low calorie because it is the bare minimum needed to make that rum. And then you can do anything with it. Add a couple of ice cubes, sprinkle some water, put some frozen strawberries in it yourself, whatever.
What's the most maybe expensive glass or bottle of wine, sorry, of rum that you've had?
So I've never had a overly expensive bottle of rum.
Hmm.
I tend to at the moment keep my taste around that $50-$60 range
Hmm.
max.
Yeah.
I cap out there, only have a few of those. But I did once spend, and here's the worst part. Um, it was just a dumb decision, because it was a decision that was made late enough in the night
Mm.
that it was not worth the money that was spent.
We've all made
But
those.
I spent $45 on a rum martini
Ooh.
that was basically just rum. Um, and it was not a very big glass, and it was a very like, hey, yay. Um, and so yeah, that was a by that point it was like I had so many much cheaper drinks that just sounded cool, so I was gonna do it. Not worth it. Couldn't tell you if it was good, bad, anywhere in between.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes sense. Well, offline we are talking about, obviously I love movies, and you got a chance to listen to fantastic, a podcast about one of my favorite movies of all time, Christmas Vacation. And there's so many great nuggets in there, things that I didn't know. And I've seen the movie over and over again, and I thought, hey, I'm gonna I know everything about the movie, but all the different notes. The one thing I thought was really interesting, that you brought out that I never thought about was the how the son and the daughter were, the age wise was flipped. I never caught that. I mean, you know that, I mean, you catch that they're different actors and actresses, but I just didn't, and I've seen them over and over again. I just didn't catch that.
It's amazing how it's obviously one of those things, the first 18,000 times or whatever you watch it, you don't catch it, but it's something that, and I think exactly what makes it work is because you're used to seeing different actors. So you just go, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
This makes sense. And you just totally look over it. And, I think they relied on it. I believe we mentioned it in the episode, but the director would later go on to say he hadn't seen any of the sequels.
Yeah.
And he didn't really care. He just wanted to make a good movie, which sometimes is a dangerous precedence and mentality to have. In this instance, though, clearly worked.
Yeah. I mean, it was campy enough that, I mean, it worked. Yeah.
No. And, Christmas Vacation, though, I was really glad we could hit that this year. Our first ever holiday special was a movie, The Holiday.
Oh yeah, it's actually one of my favorite movies too.
It was something I had actually never seen it before we did that episode, and I love it. It was great, and now it is one of those movies that if you know, like it almost feels like that. You'll hear someone mention it, and you're like, all right, we're both there. We get it.
Yeah.
But Christmas Vacation really is, and we talk about this in the episode, it's just such a staple of what the holidays are, and at least here in America, right? And so to be able to hit on that and then be able to succeed with a show or with a movie like Christmas Vacation and providing new nuggets of information, that's what makes, like, that's what the goal is. That's what makes me go, oh, I love this. And getting to exercise that, because, I think all of us have been on YouTube and we see those videos about the top 10 facts you probably didn't know about this movie. And it's like, these are the facts that everybody knows about this movie. What do you mean? And so to be able to push it beyond that and dig into some of that deeper lore or deeper connections is what we try to do. So glad to hear that was your experience.
Absolutely. And I'm not going to spill some of the other, nuggets that you had there, but make sure everyone goes and watches it, because it was great, or listens to it. Sorry, listen to the podcast, because it was great. So, so kind of moving into movies, we'll just kind of do a, lightning round here quick. Top 5. What are your top 5 movies of all time?
Top 5 movies of all time. One of these definitely is not like the others. Scream. Scream will always be my number one. Holds a special place in my heart. Knives Out. Just such an intelligent movie.
Yeah.
Avengers Infinity War is just storytelling payoff there. Incredible for what they did. The Santa Claus is actually my all-time favorite Christmas movie.
Yeah.
And then the last one that's probably not on anyone's top 5 movie list, The Dead Don't Die. And I'm gonna make a plug for, we have an episode on it.
Yeah.
And it's certainly not everyone's movie, but I adore that film.
Is that like in the vein of like Army of Darkness, or I have not heard of that one?
So no, The Dead Don't Die. It stars Bill Murray and Adam Driver. And it is a exceptionally meta, just strange zombie film where Bill Murray and Adam Driver are a sheriff and deputy in this town that people start turning into zombies, and they just kind of go about their day and try to navigate things. And at one point, they break the fourth wall, and it's just this incredible storytelling. It's an incredibly dry burn. The point is that there's not a point. And it's incredible. It like I said, certainly not for everyone.
It must be relatively new.
Let's see, 2020.
Okay.
was when it came out. It did not have like it did a technically theatrical, wow, wide release, but it was very subdued. It was very like it did not light things on fire and gather that big name. So it slid under the radar for a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm an Adam Driver fan, and not even just for Star Wars, but trying to think, there was another movie that he did that was just hilarious. Well, actually, a couple other ones, and I have to pull them up here, but I am a huge Adam Driver fan. I gotta think. Let me pull it up now.
He's, everyone, I think he really hit the mainstream with Star Wars, obviously, but when you dig into what he's done, he's just incredible across the board. He's hilarious. He can be serious. He's good. Very good.
Yeah. He was good in, obviously Silence was interesting.
Yes.
A movie of his, This Is Where I Leave You. That was, it's an interesting, I really liked him in that movie. So,
okay. I've actually not seen that one.
That was, yeah. You got me thinking about Adam Driver movies now. It's a whole nother episode.
Gonna dive down that rabbit hole.
Absolutely. Well, those are some very good and very eclectic, we'll say, movies. So well done.
Oh, absolutely. I think for anybody that's listened to the show throughout, if there's one thing that's very clear is we have a lot of eclectic interests.
That's good. I mean, that's the thing. That's why they're different movies, and they're different interests, and it's, yeah, I love it. I love movies. So.
I always say that the beauty of cinema is that there's something there for everybody, and there's something there for every mood. If you want high class cinema, you can go find it. If you want, I just want something to turn my brain off, you can go get it. And everything in between, and realizations of any fantasy or anything that you want, it exists out there. So that's why I love it.
Absolutely. Well, kind of, you said Avengers Infinity War. So let's just go ahead and kind of go into your top 5 superhero movies.
Top 5 superhero movies. Obviously, Avengers Infinity War is on that list. This is in no real particular order. The Dark Knight, I feel like that has to be in everyone's list just for what it did.
Yeah.
Spider-Man 2, Tobey Maguire. It's probably a pretty cliched answer at this point, but it just holds up for me. And then the two that are probably a little different, again, I guess I always have to be a little obstinate. Unbreakable, I rank that as a superhero movie.
Absolutely.
It's a beautifully done storytelling. And then The Crow is my greatest guilty pleasure with Brandon Lee. Fantastic film,
and such a crazy, sad story with that whole thing, but
tragic situation.
Yeah.
And then depending on where you lie, an eternally cursed franchise from that point on.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. Wow, yeah, that's interesting. So, I'm interested. So you like Infinity War, and maybe this is a whole nother podcast, but what did you think with how they ended the whole series?
Yeah, so and this is why I think I rank Infinity War above Endgame, and certainly we could extrapolate this further, but to really boil it down, I think Endgame was a beautiful bookend to that story. The reason I think Infinity War will always rank above for me is Infinity War truly was the payoff to that 10 years of storytelling. If Infinity War doesn't work, it doesn't matter how good or bad Endgame is. Infinity War had to deliver, and it did in virtually every way. And then it did something that few movies can do, which was it took a villain that is literally trying to exterminate half the universe, made them somewhat sympathetic, and then let them win. And didn't say, everyone knew Endgame was coming, but Infinity War ends, and if you didn't know that next movie's coming, like that's a conclusive story. It doesn't go, but there's more. It sends that off. And then you also just had such a high nuance with Thanos, which for a comic book movie, for a superhero film, to have that level of nuance and layering to a character and just the way all of that came together, that's why, Infinity War is just right there for me, and certainly the way they paid off that entire story arc, really well done. I do have some serious questions. I'm not going to spoil it, but after Loki and some of the things that have come since that seemingly potentially invalidate some of what came before. There's some questions I have, but if Disney and Marvel has shown anything, it is that seemingly no matter what, they will find a way. So I'm eager to see where they go with it.
The one thing, kind of on that note, and I don't know where you are on the What If series. I was not a fan of the episode with Thanos as a buddy action, buddy, I'm like, that just didn't seem with the character. I mean, like if he didn't, so I just didn't like that.
Very different. And I think, that was what they were going for, was that like, a polar opposite, but it just, with a character like that, it's really hard to be like, hey, look, he's funny now. After 10 years of, hey, this is the biggest, baddest guy coming. So
yeah, I agree. So, on that vein too, Marvel or DC?
So this is an interesting one for me. Probably going to give a pretty standard answer within the actual fandoms of that. Marvel for the live action movies, hands down. Every other medium, DC. They tell better stories in video games. Their DC is known for how bad their live action universe has been. But they don't get enough credit for what they have done with their animated universe. That is the same universe that has been running since the 90s. All of the Batman the Animated Series, Superman the Animated Series that were running in 91, 92, 95, 98, all of that is still canon to the stories they're telling today and the character developments they have, and the way that they've crafted those stories that started as a Saturday morning kids show but have really developed to mature story arcs. And then the video games are great. Marvel has yet to deliver a truly great video game. Spider-Man on PS4, PS5 was really good, but it was built off of the engine that Batman was built off of. So
interesting.
DC owns the rest of the things, but obviously the mainstream movies are what most people know. So
absolutely. Kind of switching, you talked about the 90s, so let's go ahead and rapid fire top wrestlers from the 90s and 2000s.
Top wrestlers from the 90s, 2000s. For me, this is an easy one. I'm pretty stereotypical. I was a die-hard Undertaker fan from the moment I saw him on screen. Jeff Hardy was my guy as well. When I was a kid, it was hard not to just fall in love with what he did. And then he came much later in the 2000s. But I have been a Bray Wyatt fan since the Husky Harris days. I think that, and I feel terrible, I don't remember his non-wrestling names, but I think that Bray Wyatt is an incredible talent, regardless of how you feel about what WWE did with him in the latter years, which candidly I did not watch all of. I very much kind of passively follow now. What he's been able to do and the way that he seemingly can embrace any story and any wacko characterization that they want to give him and make it something that is, if nothing else, entertaining, I think is unique. So those are kind of my top three. Beyond that, you got to love folks like the unnameable Chris Benoit. I understand taboo subject with him for WWE, but what he was able to do in that wrestling ring and the stories him and Eddie Guerrero in particular told, incredible for free television.
Absolutely.
So
I mean, I grew up in like the Jake the Snake, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, some of those wrestlers, but it was kind of more I mean, I guess it's always been campy, so to speak, but it that's definitely kind of, some of those years. I remember the Hulk Hogan rock and wrestling and all that. Yeah.
Hogan, that era of wrestling in particular, and obviously Hogan is a whole different show. But it is just so spectacular and so unique. And I don't think enough people give credit to the fact that we wouldn't have had, I think a lot of fans today really yearn back to the Attitude Era of WWE or the ruthless aggression era of the early to mid 2000s, which was really just the tail end of the Attitude Era bleeding into the PG era. I think a lot of people yearn for that without giving enough respect to the fact that we would not have that without that Brutus the Barber Beefcake, Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior,
Roddy Piper,
and they're doing what they did and really laying that groundwork in a pretty spectacular way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and all the way up to like The Rock and John Cena, all these. I mean, it is so interesting. You kind of look back, characters and in some of the new ones now, and it's definitely entertaining.
It really is. And if I encourage anyone that was a wrestling fan, the Pat McAfee show just yesterday or around January 11th, 12th, somewhere in that range, they actually had John Cena on the show for a little while, mostly to promote his new show, Peacemaker. But they dove into a little bit of the wrestling, and it was so fascinating because this was probably the most genuine John Cena interview I've ever seen.
Really?
Where it was, this is him. He's not being John Cena. This is John, and he's on this talk show today, and he's going to let you know kind of how he thought about things.
Interesting.
So highly fascinating if you ever had any interest in or saw his early career or his rise in that development. Great. And it's maybe like a 10-minute segment max, not overly long at all.
Definitely going to check it out. Definitely. Well, talking about, entertaining, top memories from the 2021 NFL season. It's really obviously been an interesting season. It might be tough to kind of, really kind of think back, but what are some of the, top memories that you have?
Yeah. So I had, this season was obviously unique. One of my favorite things to kind of think back on is a bit of a cop-out, I guess, but this year more so than any exemplified the reality of the parody of the NFL, and was the epitome of that cliche phrase we hear, well, any given Sunday. We always heard that, and I was like, yeah, okay. But when you have the Jacksonville Jaguars getting a couple wins, when you have the Houston Texans getting a little run going, when you have the Detroit Lions who managed to not lose 4 games, any given Sunday, anything can happen. And it's not like those teams were beating scrub teams. They were knocking off the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Arizona Cardinals. So that was something I just really loved about this year as somebody who did play football in high school for a horrible team.
Me too.
Shout out.
So, yep, me too. Yep. I was on my cities. We had a pretty large city. Well, Cedar Rapids.
Yes.
First 2 teams in city history to go 0-9. So there you go.
So I can count. I raise you on that. My team, we broke a about 10-year streak of we got the first varsity victory to go 1-8 my senior year. We closed out the season with a victory on senior night.
Hey, that's at least, it's a good way to go out.
We got to leave on a high note. I talk about, I gave 4 years of my life to football. I wouldn't take any of it back,
right?
Given everything that came from that. But I got to see victory twice. We won a JV game my sophomore year, and I started on that squad. And then we won the last game my senior year. And so the team has had some up and down seasons, but they've managed to scrape together a few more victories since then. They did just get moved to a smaller conference, though, so maybe that'll help that hometown team of mine out in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, talk about the parody of the NFL, and I don't know if I told you about this one, but what do you, when you look at the playoffs, do you have like a Super Bowl prediction?
Yeah, for me, and I'll go, I can give way more into this, but I'll certainly tee it up here.
Yeah.
For an episode we're going to release of Red Zone Rambling, hopefully Friday morning. Nice. My Super Bowl prediction is, I think this is going to be pretty similar to the college football playoffs. The teams you expect to win in the end are going to win. I think we're going to have a 1 seed versus 1 seed. I think you're going to see the Tennessee Titans versus the Green Bay Packers. My prediction is it's going to be a close game. I'm gonna disagree with the statement that was made on the week 18 of your show. I think the defense is exactly going to save Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers in the playoffs.
Okay.
I'm going to extend the conversation from that. I
Yeah.
think the consensus was that it's a scary thing as a Packers fan that we have the bye week. I almost wish we didn't, especially given our history with the bye week, not only in the playoffs, but even this year we played horribly coming out of the bye week. But what I'm hopeful for, and what I really do genuinely trying to put aside that fan side of me, obviously Buccaneers are always a threat. But putting aside that fan side of me, the Packers are the only team that are just getting dramatically healthier. They're getting a Jair Alexander back. Zadarius Smith returned to practice today. David Bakhtiari's back. Billy Turner's back. Wide receivers are coming back. Everybody's coming back for the stretch. And just like I think will be the case with the Tennessee Titans, getting a very healthy Derrick Henry comeback, who did not have a season of hits, but was out for 4 weeks and still led the NFL in rushing yards and finishes the season like 4th or 5th or 6th, right in that range still.
Yeah.
That's a dangerous guy. And at the end, what wins in the playoffs is the most physical teams. And I think the Packers have a run game duo to do that. And then the defenses. And with both of those defenses getting healthy and having been, if nothing else, lukewarm, and usually able to ignite through the game, I think we're going to have a close Super Bowl. I don't remember what my last prediction was, but I really do think it's going to be no more than a 7-point game, potentially a 3-point game.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm, definitely not being a homer picking the Packers. I would not like to see them win, but I just, it's hard to go against Aaron Rodgers, and what he means. And I think he's on a mission. And I do think when you look at the Titans, getting healthy, I mean, that's huge. I mean, getting healthy at the right time. It is going to be interesting, with that, I'm sure it's just kind of a debate all the time as far as, being or, actually having that bye week and just, taking that time off as opposed to going on a run. It's interesting. I was just talking with my son earlier tonight, and he thinks that the Bucs are going to lose in the first round. So it'll be interesting, but
this goes back to what we said about the parity of the NFL, right? This is the thing. I think this year's playoffs, especially in this weekend coming up, wild card weekend, is so hard to predict because everybody has shown that they are fallible. The Buccaneers got shut out. The Arizona Cardinals start out red hot, go ice cold, find their way back. Nobody has looked untouchable, even the Green Bay Packers, right? Now the Packers, I think, have put themselves, at least from a visual perspective, the eye test, in the best position. But from there, any given Sunday, right?
it really is. And, it's going to be, exciting playoffs. And that's what you want. I think, whether it's, you don't really want to see blowouts, right? I mean, there are people that, go, have Super Bowl parties just for the commercials, right? But, us people who like football, even if it's not our team, we want to see a good game.
Always. If nothing else, I want to be entertained. And I think that, I'll say again, another thing I really loved about this season was even when we had some bad football going on, it was entertaining football. And there was entertaining things happening alongside of it.
Well, yeah. Speaking of, in the background here, I have the Bills Patriots game, and I think that's when the Bills won with only passing 3 times.
Yes, the Patriots. When
the Patriots won. Yeah, the Patriots won. Yep,
3 total passing yards or 3 total passing attempts. Yeah, insane, absolute insanity. That is Madden level ridiculousness.
It is. Yeah, and it's. I mean, I'm sure it's not fun, for the players necessarily, but it is entertaining and it's memorable to think of that.
It is, and it is one of those, like, at that point, it almost becomes like, I am by no means a Patriots fan. But you get partway through that game, the first quarter happens and you have that many runs, and then you get deep into the second quarter and you have that many runs. It almost does become well, shit, are they going to be able to stop it, or are the Patriots literally going to get out of here running the ball every play? And so it almost becomes fun in that way.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, this has been fun. I definitely appreciate you coming on, and I'm definitely going to have to, have you, especially on the playoffs, on our, Freezing Four podcast. Would love that if you're interested.
Absolutely. Anytime. I would love to come on anytime. I love doing this stuff like you. I love having conversation. And on your show, I just got to give it the kudos. Like, you guys have such a great chemistry.
Nice.
I love the banter, the wittiness. And so if you're willing to let me come be a part of that, I'd love it. And I want you to know that extension goes both ways. If you have a movie or you want to hop on anything that we're doing over there, you let us know and we'll have you on Rum'd Reviews. Let's
do it. Well, appreciate it. Once again, this has been NFL Outdated, the Wide World of Sports series. And thanks again, John, founder of Rum'd Reviews. Everyone can catch you then. Rum'd Reviews on Twitter. Where else?
At Rum'd Reviews on Twitter. That's really the best place to find us. We do have a Facebook page. It's going to direct you to our Twitter page. So that's the best place to listen to us, though. We are pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts. We are on Google Podcast, Apple, Spotify. Anchor is our host site. So if you're an Anchor person, we are on Good Pods, really kind of out there anywhere. And we do have a few episodes on YouTube. So feel free to go check those out. Know that that's still a work in progress, and more's coming.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again, John. And we'll definitely catch you on a different pod sooner or later. All right.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Have a good night.
You as well.